Bammer and me is Stanley Stellar, the noted photographer, who I recently was introduced to and have begun to get close to, and I can't wait to hear him share bits and pieces of his life with our audience today. Stanley, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Mike. It just seems appropriate.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. What kind of upbringing did you have?
A very artsy, liberal upbringing in very middle class, height of middle class Brooklyn, New York, at the height of, I don't know, Lords of Flatbush era. That's where I'm from. I went to a very extremely academic high school. My parents were very open. I never really had to come out to them. They just always accepted me as who I was. And I guess they realized when I wasn't asking girls out on dates that that wasn't who I was going to be. So it was a very arty house. My mother painted at night. She liked to smoke cigarettes in the kitchen and paint oil paintings. And my father was somewhat of an interior decorator. And my older brother, 9 years older than me, was an architectural designer, meaning he did architectural interiors. So, I grew up in this house full of books, art books, Vincent van Gogh books, stuff like that. And I was always very comfortable being an arty, lonely child.
Did you act on your attraction to boys as soon as you realized
No. I didn't. I as soon as I realized I was really young, and I realized that it was something that wasn't accepted and that I should keep my mouth shut about it. And I didn't really even know what it meant. Like, I didn't really know what men even did with each other. I just knew I had this strong need for intimacy, connection with men. I was pretty much on my own always. I didn't have very many friends. I lived in an apartment house in Brooklyn, in Flatbush, in a ground floor apartment. And in all the other apartments in the building, there were no other kids. So I was pretty much by myself, even on the whole block all the time. And my mother would say, "Why don't you go out and play?" And I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know any sports. I didn't have anyone to teach me how to bowl. Somebody recently said to me, "Hey, didn't your father teach you how to bowl?" And I went, "Are you kidding? Really? Your father taught you how to bowl? Really? Well, lucky you." So when I didn't know what to do with myself as a child, as a boy in Flatbush, I'd pretty much go up to the roof of the apartment house by myself and sit there and daydream. I had a very strange childhood, I guess. It, wasn't full of friends and wasn't full of fun, really. And that's when I started looking at magazines and pictures in magazines. And that was, it was the early days of television and images, commercial images, televised images, all became part of my consciousness and awareness. And they became my friends. The very idea, it's interesting, in this sort of taking it into another sphere, but I realize now that when I'm looking at Instagram and I scroll and I scroll and I scroll, and it's exactly the same process as Stanley the boy turning pages of a magazine. And that kept me going forever.
So
What was going to be the next thing I was going to see? I didn't have any, I didn't have any close male friends. I had one uncle, thank God, who actually loved me and did things with me and took me places. He even gave me my allowance because my father was avoid all information and contact. My father just did not know how to be a father. He had no father and he didn't know how to be a father. So my uncle, saved my life in a lot of ways. I think I'm sane at all. because of him and things that he gave me and instilled in me, just by the luck of having this guy.
But in a way, your visual outlook on the world came by default.
Yes, absolutely. Right, right. And my uncle is who gave me my first camera, and I was about 10 years old,
Was
and
it a
I
point and shoot like a Brownie or something?
no, it was a dual reflex camera,
Mhm.
and I would take it out on the street with me in Flatbush, and I would just do arty things with it, and, it started me. It started me realizing that I like to look at the world and compose it in and make compositions out of it through the framework of a camera, through the framework of a square or a rectangle, that I was good at that and enjoyed it, and it became my sport. I didn't know how to play baseball. I wasn't even comfortable going to summer camp. It threatened me. I thought they're all going to know that I'm not like them, and I don't wanna be in Little League, and I'm afraid the ball will hit me smack in the middle of the face, and I won't the fuck know what to do. So I just avoided it, and my father was always out to lunch, and, my father always had the newspaper in front of his head and face. That's what I saw of my father, behind the
He hid
news.
from the world.
He hid from the world, and he spent his life reading. There were maybe 4 or 5 daily newspapers in New York back then in the, '50s, and he read them all from cover to cover, and you know what? He never even discussed one article with me. He never said, "Hey, Stanley, I read this thing." No, it was all him. Close. End of story. So, thank God for my uncle, because he took me to things like he took me on the Staten Island ferry and brought me up to the captain of the ferry and talked to the captain, and the captain let me honk the horn of the Staten Island ferry. It was my uncle who brought me to, the radio center of New York at the time and bought me my first transistor radio. Not my father, my uncle. Right.
So I mean, so as a amateur photographer myself, I will be out and just see something and look at it as if through the lens of a camera.
Right.
It makes me then want to take a photo of it
Right.
or wish that I had.
Right.
Did you begin that at an early age as
Yes,
well?
absolutely, and I'm very into composition, and I think that that's a big secret of photography, is not just seeing the image, but composing it in your mind as to what works in a compositional, way, a visual. Right, I mean, I just grew up watching television, and I Love Lucy, and looking at magazines, and then movies followed by movie star magazines, and, that's sort of I got very slick at keeping all those images within my mind, So, from an early age, I knew what existed in contemporary American society at that time, what was allowed, what you could see, and what you couldn't see, and at the same time, I realized that you could not see men. That was not allowed. Hey, there was a famous naked calendar of Marilyn Monroe, and it was famous. But was there a famous naked picture of a man anywhere in the United States of America? No. Why couldn't I? I didn't really have any men in my life so I could see them or even experience their bodies. My father did not own a bathing suit. My mother did not own a bathing suit. They never took me to the beach. No one ever taught me how to swim. I was just on my own, and I didn't even know what male bodies were like. And back then, when I first became aware of looking for pictures of men, what I found were, those vintage censored pictures in little magazines where someone would take a black magic marker and draw a fake posing strap over their dicks, and for a long time, I or
Like Bob Miser's
yes,
magazines?
right, correct, right, yeah, and for a long time when and I was young, maybe I was, I don't know what, 10, 11, 1955, 56, in there. I actually thought that it was so bad to look at a naked man that cameras were made so that when you pointed one at a naked man, it automatically eliminated their penis.
Oh my God.
I
What
believed that. That was my entire
what
experience.
about, guys our age? And I should say for the audience sake that you're 76 and I just turned
Correct.
70, so we're
Right.
pretty much comparable. Guys our age are gay men are noted for having poured through the Sears catalog, looking at the underwear shelf, etc.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even when I was in art school, I went to Parsons School of Design, and that was in I don't know when Kennedy was shot. What's that? The
63.
60s, 63, right? And I remember I wanted to make a silk screen print. I was into that in art school, and what I made was I copied the torso of a man in jockey undershorts and made a silkscreen print of that in like blues and silvers or something because it was sort of pop art time, the beginning of, and
Peter
even
Max.
right, exactly. I used to have a Peter Max ashtray, and I used to put all my cigarette butts out in his word love
Right.
until I realized what I was doing, and then I threw it away, Right, right. So even that, having nobody in my class, and there were other queer people in my class, men and women, they would never, it was like a giveaway for me to present to my class a male torso in jockey underwear, like tidy whities. It's like saying, "Hey, homo, I'm a homo. Why would I do that?"
Was there no life drawing, life figure
Yeah,
drawing?
always female,
Oh, really?
always female models, old ladies, long breasts. I mean, sure, and I learned how to draw, and sure, there was. It
But
was
never men.
no, absolutely not. Oh, no, 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 and
Which is
that's
the
mid
which is the
60s.
genesis of our current, misogyny in terms of Instagram
Yeah.
and other things where men's bodies are
Still,
not allowed.
right, it's full circle, and I'm back where I started now
Right,
with Instagram. You can't see, you can't post, you can't look.
right,
Not our community, no.
right.
And I'm in my 70s, and they're still telling me that what I'm doing is bad, and they don't want me to be part of their Instagram community.
Right. So when did you first start photographing men?
1976 exactly,
So you were
exactly.
about 30?
Well, I in the early yeah, mid-30s, yeah. 30, I was about 30, correct. In the mid-70s, I got a job as an editorial magazine art director. Uh, I in Parsons, I took graphic design. Because I liked graphics, I liked posters and movie posters and how ads looked, and I liked that whole commercialness of it. I related to it more than oil paintings in a museum. And again, it was Andy Warhol was alive and doing Campbell soup cans. It was like I was very turned on by that, and so I was in graphic design, and then I had no job, and I was at a friend's house one night, and we were smoking weed, and his phone rang, and somebody who lived on the top floor of his building called him and said he needed an art director for his magazine. And my friend turned to me and said, "Could you be an art director?" And I went, "Yeah," because I just couldn't say no. And so that put me in this whole other world of making money. And as an art director, you get people, and especially an editorial art director, that people want to have their work published in magazines and books. So people from all over the world, men and women, illustrators and photographers would make appointments with me daily and show me their work. And this is a famous Stanley story. If they came and they were straight men and they had these portfolios, mid 70s, of gorgeous black and white prints, big 16 by 20 prints of their photos, they would always be photos of women. Always. Women with bathing suits and women with red lipstick and women with liquor bottles and women in automobiles and their girlfriends, always, always, always. And if they were gay photographers who came and showed me their work, well, guess what? The pictures were always more pictures of more women.
Because they thought that's what would sell.
That's it. That's it. There was no place to, there was just nothing. There was no way to even incorporate looking at men, even in advertising in that time that I
Right.
grew up. It just wasn't, you know? And so after I got my Nikon in 1976, I realized that I didn't think the world needed me to be yet another gay man who wanted to photograph women's fashion and ladies in dresses and lipstick and jewelry. I had this hunger to photograph men, hunger to look at men, see them, interact with them. And there wasn't much of that going on any level. Back then, I think Dwayne Michaels was the only photographer I had even heard of who had the gall, the nerve to incorporate gorgeous men in some of his photos were very kind of sequential. There'd be, a photo of a man and sitting at a table, and it would show him writing something or drawing something, and then there'd be another photo of the next sequence of the man, and sometimes the man would not have his shirt on. That was huge. I remember just going, "Oh, thank God for this guy, Dwayne Michaels, whoever he is," right? And it
Now,
was
should I have heard of him today?
oh, you should have. He's still alive. Yeah, you should have, but, he's up there, Dwayne Michaels is in, every, uh, you know, mu good photographic museum and collection I'm sure there is. Right, right. He's very he's in fact, I don't wanna talk about Dwayne Michaels really. He's great, and what he did was great, and he was innovative, and that was it for him.
So you began taking them because as an art director, you had more control over what.
Well, I didn't wanna I wanted to take pictures. I realized by 1976 that I didn't wanna just design other people's pictures
Mhm.
or place them in magazines or put them on covers. I wanted my own pictures,
Right.
and I wanted to take my own pictures of what I saw and what I desired and what resonated with me, and that was just really important for me to do that, and by that point I was out, in terms of out, I don't mean that I was not hiding that I was gay, but I was functioning in the gay world in the West Village. And I had gay friends and who also lived in the West Village. And we hung out and we were honest and open with each other. And sometimes it was sexual and sometimes it was just about love and respect for each other and needing each other to be as friends and support. And so I wound up all of a sudden for the first time in my entire life finding myself in rooms with naked gay men. I had never seen that before. I hadn't been there before. I hadn't witnessed it.
Were they parties with sex as an explicit part of the
Sometimes
activities?
50-50, it was all pretty casual, you could be walking down the street and meet somebody and be in their bedroom in 20 minutes and
Well, people, young gay men, particular today, with everything being done on apps and phones, don't understand that the art of cruising.
well, everything was firsthand.
Right.
Everything was, "I see you, you see me. Is there any connection? I look at your eyes or I don't look at your eyes. You look at mine or you don't. You walk past me, I walk past you.
Turn around.
Does one of us turn around? If we both turn around, then we're talking the same language."
Right.
So it was pretty easy, and it was easy, especially in the West Village then, because that's who was there. There were all of a sudden, there were public streets where we could find each other, that we were sort of allowed to be in New York City. Because even then, the attitude about gay men was we don't want to hear them and we don't want to see them. They're all right, but we don't want to see them. We don't want to see them holding hands. We don't want to see them kissing. We don't want to hear them day or night. We don't want them on our block. We don't want them. So when things like Christopher Street materialized, uh, that was a place we could go. That was not going to have straight people who were going to call the police and report us for being not
Ourselves.
right, correct, right, loitering
Yeah.
as ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
So would you describe
Mm.
for our audience, particularly those that are not as old as we are and don't have firsthand
There's
experience,
a lot of them too. It's mostly them now.
don't have firsthand experience of it.
Mm.
What was the gay demi-monde like back then? What did it feel like? How did it operate?
Oh,
What was different about it?
well, I always remember that song at the time. I'm in with the in crowd. I go where the in crowd goes. Or there was this other song I used to like, Walking in Sunshine. There for a while there, I became, because we all had to meet on the street, because if you stayed home, you didn't meet anybody. You all, and there was no computer world. If you wanted to meet somebody or be friends with people, you had to go out and you had to have a place that you frequented. For some people, that was a bar. For me, it was the street. I didn't like hanging out in bars, and I was young. I didn't really have money to spend on drinking all night and standing in a smoke-filled room in hopes that I would be able to make small conversation with people, or someone would be attracted in me enough to say hello or talk to me. That was sort of arduous. But on the street, since I was a New York City native, I was very comfortable. I was always comfortable. I know this city. I know the rules. I know what I could get away with. So the gay demi-monde, I'm not really sure what that means, but what it meant to me at a certain time, well, that was that I had these two friends. I had these friends, Philip Beard and Michael Nomad Greenhorn, and they were boyfriends. And they both had very simple tattoos back then, and they both had a barber shop on Christopher Street. It started out being called the Christopher Street Barber Shop, and gay because would walk in there and get their hair cut, and Philip and Michael were great at it. And while I was still an art director, I met a lot of artists. I met not a lot, but I'd say a handful of artists, men and women, who were recent art school graduates, and they weren't supporting themselves as artists. They couldn't. And so I became friends with one or two contemporaries, people my age, who were doing tattoo work in New York City, and then
To make a living.
to make a living. But what made them special was that they were artists from the get-go. They weren't from traditional tattoo flash design background. They were able to offer people, and gay men and gay women, customized designs, and also have their bodies tattooed in secret places on their bodies, secret tattoos that people would only know about when you were naked and they chose to reveal these parts of their bodies. And it was all very exciting to me. It's still around 1976, and I was like, "Hey, you mean there's this world of men walking around with these tattoo designs under their clothes? Straight men, gay men? How are we supposed to see that or know anything about that?" And in 1976 or 77, when I started looking for tattoo information, tattoo photos here in New York City, big, New York City, in all of New York City, there was one book available, one called Art, Sex, and Symbol, and it was from the 40s, and it was only available at the Gotham Book Mart in Midtown, and that was it, because tattooing was illegal here, you know? So these
When did it
friends of
become legal?
mine, 15 years ago, maybe?
Yeah.
Much more recently. So there were these people of mine, the friends of mine who were doing private tattoo work from their apartments, and that illegality of it had a huge cachet. It was that was the demi-monde that I was in. This world of mixed sexuality, doing something from your house that was considered illegal in New York, and also customizing your body, eroticizing your body in ways that you couldn't walk into a straight
So
tattoo.
you began photographing
Yes,
them?
right. That became my big lead into photographing men, and one of my friends was a really great tattoo artist, a female painter, and she would give me lists of the names and numbers of incredible people that she had done incredible things with, that were not uh, viewable on their bodies, that weren't particularly on their arms,
Right.
you know? And I
Were
would
all of them receptive when you reached out to them?
90% of them, yeah, because there was nobody like me and nobody interested in me. This is New York City, and nobody's interested, you know?
How long did it take to develop a reputation in that circle?
Well, for me or for the tattoo artists, you know?
You.
For me, pretty quickly, because still no one was doing it except me, and, it wasn't something people even talked about, and, it was clandestine. And then there was this other side of tattooed men who had just spent thousands of dollars on customizing their body in secret ways, and they didn't necessarily want to have pictures circulating of their uniqueness, because they wanted to be special, and they didn't want other people to copy what they had done on their bodies. So, it was always, I had to be really sincere with them, and I had to have had the endorsement of the tattoo artists who.
Why would they allow you to photograph them unless you weren't gonna show that to other people? Because they wanted it to be kept secret, didn't they?
Correct. Right. And then having a tattoo put somewhere on your body, anywhere, you name it, your ass, US grade A beef, or around your nipple, or wherever, let alone over your dick, was very exotic. I mean, most of the world didn't have any tattoos. The tattoos that men had back then were going to be little devils with pitchforks
And mom.
and mom, or this was a big one, an eagle.
Yeah.
An eagle. I remember one night standing in front of a gay bar at 3 in the morning and watching these men come out, and seeing eagle on arm, eagle on arm, eagle on arm, and thinking, "Why are they all getting eagles? What? Did they go to the eagle bar? Is that it? What is it about that?" I never really found out, but then as I learned more about the history of tattooing, and I learned more about that there is a direct storyline about, birds, birds of, let's call eagles birds, and the art of tattooing in throughout the, I'd say, 19th century through early 20th century, that getting bird tattoos on you was a way of identifying you being a homosexual.
Oh, wow.
Right, correct. Right, and that then gay tattoo artists often took tattoo bird names like Phil Sparrow, Cliff Raven, names like that, right? And that was an underground thing. So is that demi-monde? I don't know.
Yeah, very definitely.
Okay.
It's kind of a demi-monde within a demi-monde.
Correct. Right, right, right.
So how did you get from that point?
Well, there was a point where I realized, hey, it's not just the tattoo that I'm interested in, it's the man. I mean, I had experiences back then where I would meet in some way some incredible tattooed freak. People used to have cards. I met some guy once who gave me his card, and he had his name on it, and it said, that he was a tattoo enthusiast, right? And I would meet people like this, and then I would follow up, and I would have encounters with men that would like be, yeah, I'll take my clothes off and let you photograph me only if we have sex. And so, yes, of course, I was hungry for the sex, and I was hungry to see these customized bodies in a world where there were none. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry did not have a tattooed arm sleeve
Right.
at all. Period. The end. No. Right. Not in this neck of the woods.
Right.
Right. So, I was really involved in that for years, and it was, it bordered between fine art performances that involved tattooing and the eroticism of secret body tattoos and customizing your body. And then my friend Michael Greenhorn Nomad, who I mentioned earlier, who had been a barber, well, he inherited tattoo equipment from somebody, and he started teaching himself how to tattoo men. And Michael was very attractive. He was British and very wonderful and sexy, and nobody met him that didn't fall for him on some level. He wasn't a cliche anything. He was really one of a kind. And then he found very quickly that men of all ages would pay him whatever he asked for to have him work on their bodies for hours and hours and hours. So, some retiree or some exec somewhere would just be thrilled that for the next whatever 30 hours of their life over different days, Michael's hands were going to be on them with a needle, and they were going to be transformed into erotic beings, secret erotic beings. So,
So you took these. How long would you say that period lasted?
I did till around, till the early 80s.
So 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, more like 5 years. I just outgrew it a lot because I really started to realize when I had to talk and deal with all these tattooed guys. And then also, I was not just relying on my friends to give me lists of who their clients were, but I would see a tattooed arm on the street in the West Village, and I would think, well, there's probably more there. And I would talk to them. And I got really, really good at it. And good wasn't about fooling them. It was introducing myself to them, paying attention to them, admiring what they had on their arm.
Speaking the same language.
Correct. Right. So very often, I met somebody once on Thompson Street in Soho, and maybe within 12 minutes, he took me to the roof of his apartment where he took all his clothes off and showed me his incredibly tattooed body. And yes, I had my camera, and yes, I had color film.
Right.
I was really, really smooth with it because I was honest with them.
Sure.
I wasn't approaching them thinking, oh, I really want to have sex with you.
Authenticity is sexy.
That's totally right. Exactly. And it became very powerful for me. And people used to say to me, hey, Stanley, can I hang out with you this afternoon and watch how you do it? No.
Right.
No, I don't need an audience. No, thank you.
Right.
Right. So, I got very good at making men comfortable with me in a very honest way, and also knowing that my point was that I wasn't looking for sex with them. I was looking to do this creative thing, my vision. I had my vision.
But sometimes the rapport and the connection.
Absolutely, and unforgettable.
Yeah.
In an unforgettable way, and many men are, I'm sure all gay men still have this experience that you can meet somebody and have an incredible experience with them, and then you never encounter them again for a minute in your life ever again,
right?
Or they're somewhere else. It's funny, people are always say, I post some picture of some guy I took 40 years ago on Instagram, and then someone will write me and say, well, do you know where he is now? And I think, what the fuck?
At the same time, let me ask if your experience is like mine. Because I've taken these photos of people, not all naked, not all tattooed, oftentimes after I've posted them, somebody themselves will contact me or
Absolutely.
someone will contact them and say, "Hey, your photo's here," and they'll
Absolutely.
get in touch with me, right?
Absolutely, and throughout these 40 years, that I've been taking pictures of men, um, I get constant feedback from people I barely remember
Right,
that maybe I spent 2 hours with once,
right.
and the feedback is always positive and great, and it's like, "Hey, Stanley, you said something to me back then while we were taking pictures that changed my life or that I never forgot, and I don't even know what they're talking about." Really,
Yeah,
truly, but I tend to have left people, it was always I always thought, this is a dicey thing to get men out of their clothes and photograph them and have it all smooth and know that I'm
yeah, but
doing this.
because you believed in it, that's what made it work.
Yes, and also I wasn't doing it just because I wanted to look at their picture then and then masturbate.
Right,
No, I was doing it because I wanted to take this history of my vision in front of me
right.
that I wanted to record. I wanted to make images using men, and still that was still banned from our society. I always remember watching TV, and there would come on the laundry detergent ad for Tide or something, right? And there would be the housewife in front of the washing machine and the husband in a dirty white t-shirt, and she'd say, "Gee, you really, we got to wash that t-shirt." And there'd be a little zing noise. And all of a sudden, he would never have taken it off. Just the dirty t-shirt would zing into a white t-shirt. Like no one even took their shirt off
Right,
then. It was impossible in our society to see men
right.
without being, it could be, without it being a loaded issue, you know?
No pun intended.
Correct. Here I am in this world of men. That's was the point I was going to make about being honest and upfront. I everyone I ever photographed for 40 years, I asked to sign my model release because I told them I'm doing this because I want to be able to show these photos
Right,
in a fine art context. I want these out there. I'm not doing these to just jerk off in my bedroom.
right.
So that was very, I'm glad I've always had that attitude. And then when I just started photographing men in general, and starting in the 80s, because I needed to support myself and I could photograph naked men pretty easily in New York and sell them to gay magazines. And there were gay magazines all around the world. And I sold to almost every publisher there was in the 80s.
Did you work directly for the magazine or you just took the photos and then approached the magazine?
Correct. You take the photos and then you show them to different magazines. And if the male is, of interest to them, then they'll buy the set. And for me, then that was always based on slides, color slides, because all the reproduction. And remember, I come from graphic design,
Right.
right? So I was pretty familiar with this, and I quickly began I yes, it was so easy to photograph dicks and assholes. So easy. No problem at all. But I wanted always to be more than that. I wanted to transcend that. So when I would do a shoot with anybody, I would work at how can I see these men in an erotic way that isn't 42nd Street porn?
Right.
That surely we can look at men and gay men can look at each other and the world can look at men that without their clothes on that it's not going to be porn.
Trashy.
That's right. It's not going to be cheap or lewd or cliche or porn. So I would work with these guys and I could see the back of somebody's neck and take a very sexy picture of them, you name it. So I got really good at that and then I would include those images in photo sets that I would present to
And would they
potential.
publish them too?
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
No interest whatsoever.
yeah.
They pick the same lousy 8 dick and assholes
Right.
forever. And that's how I survived in the 80s.
I recently photographed somebody in the nude. I do it occasionally as a hobby. I have not used model releases, and I'm going to going forward for various reasons. But I discovered and recognized something that I hadn't thought about before. It was a very attractive man. I didn't really have any sexual interest in him. I was, but I had a sexual charge from the trust I built up,
Correct.
from the fact that I was being allowed and given this power
Correct.
to do what I wanted with this person
Absolutely.
visually.
And they trusted
Right,
you.
right.
Trust. That's a really important
Yeah.
thing in all relationships between anybody and then somebody else.
Right.
Right?
But that was what excited me,
Yes.
was that
Me
this
too.
model was in my hands to
Right.
do what I wanted with
Right.
for the purposes of these products.
Absolutely. And, but up until the recentness of cell phones, you had to really know a photographer if you wanted a picture of yourself.
Right.
And gay men have always wanted to see their bodies at this age or that age or whatever, or have something to send someone in a letter. This is who I am. And there was simply no way to do that unless you actually knew a competent photographer.
Who could develop for you.
That's right. Right. So that's what I did. And I was pretty unique, really. And very unique people found me through word of mouth, through people I photographed would then tell somebody else, a friend of theirs who was magnificent, they should call me, and they would, you know? So that's the beginning of me as a photographer.
Well, you raise a question I was going to ask later. When you compare today, when everybody has a camera in their hand,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What do you think of photography now versus back in the day when it wasn't so easy?
Oh, that's a bad question. Nothing. Almost nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. I think that, I mean, it's great. The internet and the whole digital age is great where it's great and really shitty where it's shitty, So, everybody now, especially since they thought of this concept of selfies, where I can look at my own camera in my own hands and see how I look and make just the right face and put my lips in just the right big fat cocksucking position so you think I'm this hot stud. That now they're all used to looking at themselves. And to them, they in control of looking at themselves. That's it. That's photography today.
So what used to be unaffected beauty has now become doctored beauty.
Doctored, controlled, customized,
Right.
and that's it. That's the standard now, right? Everybody wants the icon of themselves the way they created it, and a photo is accurate. Every photograph is accurate, but photographs are not the truth. They're just an accurate millisecond.
It's like history.
Correct. That's all it is, right?
Have you noticed the following trend? I won't mention names, but there are some people.
You can.
There were some young men who I either met or knew or saw on TV when they were early in whatever their careers were. And the naturalness which they exhibited.
So sexy.
And the pure beauty.
Right, right.
And as time goes on, and they become influencers,
right,
and they develop followings and audiences of 1 million or 2 million.
Right.
It's become so plastic.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I know there's some guy in New York that I photographed maybe for the last 15 to 20 years. And in maybe his first month here in New York, we met somehow. I don't really recall the exact way we met. But when he came to my studio and I took pictures of him, maybe for the first time or maybe every time. I remember once he was here and he said to me, Stanley, having this experience with you, that's the reason I came to New York City. So now it's 15, 20 years later, and the guy has hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram. And he's learned how to selfie himself to death. He can selfie himself in his red bedroom or in his leather
But you don't
clothes.
recognize in him the young man that you
Oh, he's gone.
right,
No, it's all pose, 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 pose.
right,
There's no hint of any truth there at all anymore. And, I still like him. I'm still his friend, but I don't want to photograph him anymore.
exactly,
Nor does he want or need me
right.
to record him anymore. And he's at this point now, right, with, hundreds of thousands of photographs of him looking wonderful and sexy and hot out there, and tens more thousands of followers who know his name by his name. The last time I talked to him, you know what? He was like, "I'm out. I'm over it. I don't care anymore. Bored. Totally
The
bored."
plastic starts to bore even him.
Totally bored,
Yeah.
right, and when I see his life in the pictures, it's the same life. He's still living in the same small apartment with the same small 2 cats.
Wow.
That's it, right? I could give you more details about him,
Yeah.
but I'll stop there. But he's on view in a bar in New York, uh for decades now, and he's kind of famous. And when you go to a bar and the bartender is nice, a gay bar, and attractive, sometimes you talk to them because maybe nobody else will even talk to you. So, I mean, he's still here and gorgeous, but even he has just wiped himself out
Wow.
over the whole topic.
So you've had a checkered relationship with censors, right?
Yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about that
Well,
then versus now?
Well, censors, for me, censors started back when I was a child, and I thought, why can't you look at a picture of a naked man? Why can't I see why? I can't even touch them in real life. I can't even have them. I, I had an older brother who was 9 years older than me. You know what? I never, ever, ever succeeded in pulling his pajama bottoms down. Not ever, not once.
Never showered in front of you?
No, absolutely not. Just not that. This is the family where the parents didn't even own bathing suits.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So I remember when I first started getting having the power to send away in catalogs for little things, magazines, or I started buying the
Right.
first primal kind of gay magazines. And all of a sudden I found that my name became was on a mailing list. In the mailing list, every 2 weeks or so, I'd get a sealed white envelope. And my parents wouldn't mess with it or open it. And I'd open it, and it would be a kind of one sheet folded into three folds and to fit in this legal size, this regular white envelope. And I'd open it up, and it would be like the whole page would be covered in pink ink, and it would be little mini, mini 1 inch high male nudes, really tiny, tiny. And it was sort of like, here are the samples. And you could order these pictures from us, or the whole page would be in like crude, cheap blue ink or purple ink.
How did that come to you in the mail?
I don't quite remember. I mean, I must have sent away for something once. I remember censorship is a I'm sorry if I veer away. Uh, in, in the late 60s, I lived in a 5-room apartment on 3rd Avenue by myself, and I could afford it. I remember seeing an ad that said magazines of the pictures you're not allowed to see of movie stars. Buy this magazine, and we'll send you, these naked or near naked pictures of, Elvis Presley in his jockey shorts. Or, we claim this is, some movie star from the 30s naked in a tree or something like that. And I remember I sent away for it. Why? Because it's me, because I relate to pictures and magazines. And one day I'm in my apartment, and the bell rings, and there was a long hallway from my apartment to the front door of my apartment. And by the time I got to the front door and opened my front door, there was the magazine hanging from a wire coat hanger in front of my door, with the word faggot written over it.
Oh my God.
And it was from the landlady. She
She
always
opened your
sneered
mail?
at me. Yes, she always sneered at me. She I don't, I remember her name to this day, and she just sneered at me, and always, and it was nobody but her, and she knew she could do this thing and steal the magazine. The mailboxes were right there down with her front door. And
Do you ever think of getting a private P.O. box?
well, I have over the years, but yeah, but I don't really need that anymore.
Sure.
But so, censorship all my life. It's been censored even when I first started to think I could be an out gay photographer. What's wrong with being a gay photographer? There's nothing wrong with me. I'm a great photographer. Why can't I just be an open out photographer? Why do I have to be embarrassed or ashamed that I photograph men, that I look at men and I make art with men? What is wrong with that? You know? And I never felt there anything was wrong with that, to tell you the truth. I mean, I was here in Stonewall, I mean, I've always been here, right? What's wrong with that, right?
Well, didn't you also have a lot of the photos you sent off to be developed?
Oh yeah, well, you want that story about? Sure. Yeah,
Quickly,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I used to love this one film, Kodachrome 64. It was just the richest color, and only Kodak had the ability to develop that film. And I would often bring it into a lab that was, an established lab. And, a few days later, I'd go pick it up and they'd hand me the envelope with the box of slides inside, and I'd pay whatever it was, $9.95, whatever. And then I'd open the envelope and the box would be hollow and empty. And there'd be nothing but slide mounts in the box because people at Kodak in Rochester, New York, didn't like me and what I was doing.
And how often did it always get interrupted like that? Or
No, no, it was just spin the wheel of fortune.
right,
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
right,
But if I stopped using Kodachrome and I started using Ektachrome, then anybody could develop that film and it
right,
became easier.
right. So here we are today,
Mm.
50 years later,
Mm-hmm.
and you and I are both on Instagram.
Correct.
We both had our account disabled by Instagram
Correct.
for the
My
same reason.
account, right? My account with 35,000 followers who are all saying this is incredible history, Stanley, incredible art, doesn't mean a thing to Instagram. Right. Here we are. Right. Right.
Someone just told me, I don't know if it's true, that apparently their algorithms, their bots, are not capable of measuring skin surface visibility on black and white photos. So they can't censor the black and white in
Oh,
the same way they censor the color. Have you heard that?
no, but because I'm sure I've had pictures removed of both color and black and white.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, I really have no idea what their algorithms are about, but their algorithms are clearly
Homophobically programmed.
absolutely right. And it's also so arbitrary to me, because part of them is like, no problem with any porn at all as long as it's a drawing or a painting, right? People have Instagram feeds with, like, art history stuff and individual porn, gay porn, straight porn, close-ups of dicks and vaginas. As long as it's a drawing, that doesn't bother them in the least. That doesn't bother their Instagram community standards in the least. A drawing, but a photograph,
Also,
that crosses their
there's a
line.
huge misogyny and
Absolutely.
sexism. The
Absolutely.
female body can be objectified
Absolutely.
without any problem.
It's been my case been the case where I'll, like, just look up a hashtag, and if the hashtag is not all the hashtags I've used the word gay in them to keep them specific,
Right.
right? But if I just, I would say gay sneakers, right? I would say gay Levi's, whatever. right? But if I just looked up sneakers, I'd wind up looking at hundreds and thousands of pictures of women's feet in sneakers,
Right.
right? So by labeling it gay so that they don't get offended, that puts them on their watch list. Then now the haters of the world and
Right.
the far right who are now wanting to crash pride celebrations can find me easy as pie.
Well, it's even worse is that I've noticed like some of these same influencers we're talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe they're fitness instructors.
Right.
They're really good
Oh,
looking
there's a
guys,
million of
and
them.
they'll show a lot of ass
Oh, they'll push their
pubes,
asses in
and
your
it's okay
face.
because they're not gay sites.
Correct. Correct. How many times have you seen these huge male butts going up and down, exercising in your face? You can smell the photos, and there's no problem with that at
Right.
all. Right. Right. But me, a 40-year-old photograph of the back of, with partial nudity. I have never in the 4 to 5,000 images I've put of mine,
Yeah.
original images on Instagram, ever put an image with a dick in it, ever. Yet I've been penalized, warned, I've
The problem is that you look at their guidelines and they're written so broadly that they can technically exclude wherever they want.
correct. They've said that they've removed my pictures for bullying. Bullying?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, got
Or
it.
solicitation.
That's right. I got one last week, sexual solicitation. And well, that's part of our today reality. Are you going to talk to a robot?
Yeah.
Somebody said to me, well, can't you call them
There
and
is
let
no
them know?
customer service.
There's nothing.
Right.
They don't give a shit. It's all about their ability to monetize their platform.
Well, advertising agencies are the clients, not the users.
That's right. Exactly. Right. So
So how do you plan to proceed going forward?
I don't. I was almost ready to totally walk away
Right.
this week, to tell you the truth. I was going to discuss this with you, except it all changed this morning. But last week, I got this idea. I thought, you know what? I'm tired of them threatening me, and because now I'm on my next Instagram account and it's just called Stanley.Stellar 2. And I don't have 35,000
Got
followers, and
5,000.
I have 5,000 followers.
So you have to recreate that, which takes years.
It took me 5 years to get to the 35 because I didn't buy commercial,
Right.
following lists.
Right.
I mean, I know some guys they're decent photographers, but did they really have 200,000 followers? Right. So, but that's their business. Okay.
But the other problem is there are a lot of people who are making very successful livings off these pages, and suddenly they're removed
Correct.
for no
Right.
good reason.
Correct. You can't even talk to them.
Right.
So I'm here last weekend and I get this idea. Okay, you know what? I'm really tired of doing the same thing and being punished in the same way because I'm still never going to put things that I knowingly think break their community rules.
Right.
And then I thought, Stanley, I've been photographing this event in New York City called Folsom Street East since the late 1990s. And I have year by year by year beautiful photographs through my designed vision of Folsom Street East. Most of them never seen because there's been no context for anyone to want to publish them or be seen in them, even,
Right.
And so I thought, I could just do my own totally new thing and call it Stellar.FSE, Folsom Street East. Right. So it's like a few days ago this happened to me. So I set it up. I write it in as an alternate account, another account. And when I go back to look for Stanley.Stellar 2, it's frozen. Again, it's disabled. While I was setting up a new alternate site, Stanley.Stellar 2 became disabled for the last 5 days.
But you got it back.
This morning. I don't know how. They do this thing, shake your
Report
phone
problem.
and report. So for 4 days in a row, I said, what happened? I can't post there now, even it's my next site. What? Help me. because there's nobody to talk to.
Did you get an email eventually saying
No, no,
report?
no, no, no.
I get emails saying, "We apologize, a mistake was made, and
Right.
your page has been
Lucky
restored.
you. No, no, no,
Sorry for
no.
the
No, I
inconvenience."
just sat here on the sofa this morning and went, "Oh, now when I press Instagram, that comes back." Before, when I was pressing Instagram for the last 4 days, the little Instagram button on my phone, all I got was Stellar Folsom Street East, which has nothing posted on it
Right.
whatsoever, right? And I was like, How did this happen?"
So basically, it's a Kafkaesque world,
Yeah,
right?
thank you. Right. So at this point, before this morning, I was thinking, I'm ready to just walk away from
Right.
Instagram entirely.
The problem is there's no other platform.
Exactly. They say Twitter, put yourself on Twitter. Well, that's a different fucking world.
Plus,
Like,
Elon Musk may own it and end up taking that right away.
right. And being on Instagram, you get exposed to your 5,000 followers or your
Exactly.
35,000 followers. Being on Twitter, somebody has to be looking for you,
Right.
and they have to find you through somebody else's, hustler's porn site of, hey, Twitter, you can watch me get fucked here on Twitter,
Right.
right? And then you can join my private group on whatever that is. What's it called? Fans only.
Yeah, oh, OnlyFans.
That's what it's all
Right.
about.
Monetizing it.
That's fucking what it's all about, right? If you like this little clip here,
Right.
then join my OnlyFans. That's Twitter. So what am I going to go there?
Twitter is kind of crude.
Very right. And then, but I kept getting these. Hey, go to Twitter. They won't censor you, will you? They won't see me either.
What I've done, I do have a Twitter. I set it up when I encountered problems with my Instagram, but what I'll do is I'll post the photos that I know I can't put
Correct.
on
Correct.
Instagram on Twitter, and then
Correct.
on the Instagram, I'll tell people for the real photo,
Go
to
there.
Twitter,
Right.
and on Twitter, if you want to read the narrative that accompanies this, go to Instagram. But it's a lot of work.
Yeah, so for 40 years, I have been fighting against being a pornographer.
Right.
Any asshole with a camera or a cell phone can take a picture of a dick.
Right.
You don't need to have anything but that.
Right.
You can look at your own dick and go click.
Right.
I don't need to add to that well of consciousness of imagery.
But what you're saying is, unfortunately, the world does not recognize artistic
Correct.
talent, if there's a dick involved.
Correct. And the world is used to just now selfies. That's what it all means to them. It doesn't go beyond it.
Yeah. So what's the solution?
I don't have one anymore.
Yeah.
Right. As I was thinking, well, you're going to come here and you've had experience with them. Maybe I can ask you if you know some way I could get through to them to get back my account.
I'll share you what I know later, but not that you need it right now.
But it happened instantly for some reason this morning.
Ultimately, you and I need to find a dozen other people like us, try to create something where we all have a critical mass and we bring it to an audience and we all share.
Correct. Or I was thinking, how can I get in touch with the New York Times, tech people who might do an article, and I'm sure it's already been done about Instagram's homophobia.
Yeah.
Right.
I had actually planned, and it was organizing a campaign to have everyone post at the same time on the same day, the same photos that had been deleted among all of us that were not offensive. Right. To at least get publicity.
Right, absolutely. I've also experienced, and this is a real joke on at Meta at Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they've removed pictures that are just beautiful pictures, not genital pictures in any way. And they've removed them and punished me, and they keep a record of all the offenses. And once or twice I've gone back and posted the same photo on my boring Facebook page. And all those photos are still there.
I created a second Instagram page, posted the ones that were deleted on it, and it's still okay.
So then what to do? Talk about Kafkaesque world. I can't bang my head against the wall anymore about
random and arbitrary and unfair.
Correct.
And there's no redress.
Correct. Totally correct. So in the end, it makes me want to feel like walking away from the whole.
But we still need a communal place to show our.
Absolutely, because part of why I've done so well in the last 5 to 10 years is that I'm not unknown anymore.
Right.
right? I mean, I used to being a gay photographer, I was in isolation. They knew all the gay fashion photographers.
Right,
I'm not gonna mention his name, who, does models with Aryan hairstyles
right.
in GQ, right? Who pretends he's straight,
Yeah.
right? Who's not.
Well, we're not I don't think we're gonna unfortunately come up with a solution today, but we really should be looking for one, right?
Well, we should be, but you know what? I paid my dues already.
Yeah.
I really have. I was a pioneer. Now there are all these, the young gay photographers contact me all the time. I know a wonderful gay photographer in Mexico who writes these tributes to me about him being a boy in high school and seeing my name on pictures that he swooned over, and not porn magazine pictures.
Right, right,
Right? And now he's got 100,000 followers on Instagram, and he's learned what to do.
right,
And I love him. He's great. He came here, he visited me. We're friends. We're great.
right.
So there's legions of young men who feel fine about being
Who you
gay,
inspired.
who I inspired, who feel fine about being open gay photographers.
Well, basically, it sounds like no matter how much we think we've advanced as a civilization, we're gonna encounter the same headwinds
Always.
in terms of
Yeah.
being accepted for who we are and what we are attracted
Isn't that shocking? That it's full circle to me that I have to cover now, and people leave comments like, "Why are you putting a black box over this? What's wrong with you, Stanley?"
because I don't wanna disappear.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's just there's a no-win. It's a no-win
Well,
situation.
for our audience's sake, we both, with different histories, different ways to where we are today, find ourselves meeting with similar photos and similar experiences.
The irony is incredible.
And so it's
Yeah.
really great to have had the opportunity to meet you, get to know you. I know now that we're
Oh,
going to continue
Mike,
having
yeah,
interactions.
yeah, yeah. You and I have so many things in common and loves in common.
Yeah.
Of things that we don't see anything wrong with.
Right.
Right.
There's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong with it. Right. I mean, I live a pretty normal life, I must say, to use that boring word,
Right.
but I mean, my life is, I'm with the same man for 50 years.
And yet we're still judged by people who have power over us.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Not only that, but I'm someone who forged this field of being an open gay photographer. And I'm also someone who lived through the AIDS years.
Yeah, we didn't mention that.
We didn't talk about that one at all,
Yeah.
baby. So I'm the rarest of the rare.
How many friends would you say you had that?
All of them.
Yeah.
All of them. 200.
Yeah.
Right. It didn't stop. It went right through the 80s and it continued through the 90s. And now any men I know, through social things, like I used to be connected to the Leslie Lohman Museum, they're all close to my age and they're all busy taking 20 pills a day. And they're all skinny and they're all have health issues, and it's just,
Yeah, I feel like I dodged a bullet. I don't know why.
exactly. I did too. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I do know why. I just stopped going out there and being promiscuous for 15 to 20 years.
Yeah, I'm careful usually not to say that because then I get excoriated for being
For using the word.
judgmental.
Oh, it's not. No, be promiscuous as you want. But how did I survive? That's how I survived.
Right.
There was no other way.
Same here.
Right.
Well, it's been a pleasure. We'll continue this.
It's been a mouthful, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we both enjoyed a conversation, shall I say?
Well, yeah, and I think that there are topics we didn't even get to yet. So
Maybe we'll have to do part 2 of this.
Well, you'll be back in New York
I
sometime.
will. Regularly.
And I'm really happy that you've bitten off and found something that is so appropriate and right for you to be involved in right now. Even your ability to focus in on some of these issues, the generational issues, it's beautiful because why? Nobody else is doing it.
And following on your comments about when you started in the tattoo industry, and not to pat myself on the back, but because I share it all, warts and all, there's an authenticity that comes through, and that's what people are responding to. So if you or I both, or either, have a message for our audience. It's when you find something that you enjoy and you embrace it and show every bit of it, irrespective of how popular or unpopular it is, ultimately in the long run, you're probably going to have better results and a happier life because you've been true to yourself.
Right, and I have, and I am, and now I'm Stanley Stellar the legend,
I know.
and I'm happy about that. That's good.
Well, it's nice that I've gotten to know Stanley Stellar, the legend, as well as the man.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks so much, Steve. The podcast you've been listening to is produced by Mike Balaban and Tom Walker, recorded and researched by Mike Balaban, with editing and music from Henry Lay.